What's going to be the hot cert that gets you hired in 2020? Let's talk about it. All right, what gets you hired in 2020 is kind of a big question, right? I mean, let's really kind of break it down. It depends on where you are in your career. If you've never worked with computers before, if you're brand new to IT, well, choosing to get a cert, that was the right choice. But which cert should you tackle first? That's a huge question. Me personally, I went straight after Network Plus. I know a lot of people say you should probably go into CompTIA A+, and that's where everybody begins their career. They start off in help desk and move their way up. Yeah, that's good advice. I'm not going to say don't do that, because if you are green and you want to work in computers and you want to have a lot of options, then going with the A+ is probably the way to go, because it's a very, very broad set of exams and it gives you a broad skill set. But I knew that I wanted my title to end in engineer. I knew I wanted to go straight for a systems or networking engineer job right off the bat. So I went straight for Network Plus with the intention of getting the base level skill set that's going to help me get my CCNA first. And that brings up a big point. You know, do people think you should get your Network Plus first, or should you go straight for CCNA? And a lot of people will tell you, oh, I'll go straight for CCNA. Maybe, maybe not. I feel that CCNA is a big challenge because if without the Network Plus, you're learning the fundamentals, you're learning the OSI stack, you're learning how layer 2 gets moved before layer 3 and so on. Whereas that's what the Network Plus set me up with for success. Let me tell you, I barely passed my Network Plus exam. That was a really hard exam. I did pass it on my first try, but I mean, I remember going halfway through it thinking, man, I failed. Let's just like next yes to get out of this thing. But I didn't. I gave it my best effort and I got through the exam, barely squeezing out a pass on the Network Plus. I went immediately into the CCNA exams and destroyed them. Like I did fantastic on the CCNA exams, in large part because the Network Plus set me up with the base foundation and skills that I needed to be successful. I watched Keith Barker's course to pass the Network Plus, read Keith Barker's book to pass the Network Plus, then immediately went into Jeremy Chara's stuff. And I mean, obviously everybody knows that Jeremy Chara is like the king of teaching the CCNA. Now, this brings up a good point. We're in the middle of CertPocalypse right now. Everybody's trying to get their CCNA and CCNP coursework done before the new exams come out in February. I get that. I definitely get that. You know, me personally, thinking that my number one goal for 2020 is going to be to get DevNet certified. There's a lot of stress right now for me because there are no textbooks, there are no practice exams. I'm just going off of the deep level of studying I've done on these individual topics over the years. Now just kind of banking on the fact that I think I'll be able to roll into this exam and pass. But there's still, like, you know, those Cisco nuanced questions, you know what I'm talking about? There's just a little bit of stress about these new exams. Well, that's probably the same way that a lot of CCNA takers feel right now about a whole new CCNA coming out at the end of February. That being said, I still think the number one cert that you can achieve in 2020 is CCNA. I really believe that. Even if you're not in networking, I really believe that having that strong of a foundation in networking is going to help you throughout your career. It's either going to help you get into networking, or it's going to beef up your system skills so much that you'll be comfortable engineering solutions at that networking tier. So I do feel strongly that depending on where you are in your career, you may want to do some CompTIA work. You may want to do the Network Plus to get your foot in the door. But CCNA is going to be the number one most valuable exam that you can get, whether before or after CertPocalypse. I think that's going to be a big deal. But then immediately after CCNA, you know I'm going to put DevNet in there. That DevNet Associate exam is symbolic of the future for me personally. That's not saying that CCNA is the past. I just believe that this is the direction that things are going, and you will be able to think critically in the workplace. No matter what platform you're working with, you'll be able to think critically about, like, man, this is a repetitive, monotonous task, or I can be proactive in monitoring and alerting. That's what the DevNet is all about. It's all about automation and integration, being proactive and helping you get the answers that you need out of the network quicker. So if I had, like, to paraphrase a conversation I had with Jeff Kish recently, if I had 4 resumes in front of me, 3 of them were CCNA, 1 of them was a CCNA with the DevNet, guess whose resume just went to the top of the list? I mean, it's a no-brainer for me. I'm going CCNA and DevNet. So I definitely think that you're going to want to try and check out the CCNA and, of course, the DevNet content. I really believe that the DevNet content is going to be crucial for your success. But then let me throw one more thing in there. You're going to get the DevNet and you're going to, like, maybe tweet me or something and say, hey, I got the DevNet. It's killer. My challenge to you then is going to be great. Now do it with Juniper. You see, the JNCIA DevOps exam is so similar in structure and content to the DevNet exam. I believe that you could accomplish the JNCIA DevOps within 1 to 2 weeks of taking the DevNet exam. And further, if you Google Junos Genius, you'll find a website that you can register for and then start the learning track for JNCIA DevOps. The ending of that track is an assessment exam that gives you a voucher to take the test for free. I personally took this test, was it last week, the week before, whatever. I took this test recently for free and passed it with a mild amount of studying because I was so comfortable from all of the content that I just recorded for DevNet. And we have a JNCIA DevOps course on CBT Nuggets, so you'll probably want to check that out too. Now, shifting gears a little bit into the system side of things, we've talked a lot about network and network automation, but the system side of things, you know, I still get this question a lot. Should I go for my MCSA or should I go for Azure Administrator? I mean, what a huge question. I still feel pretty strongly about the fact that if you've never worked with Windows Server before, the Azure Administrator exam is only going to get you so far, because at the end of the day, Azure is all about building out new solutions administratively in the cloud. But let's say you spin up a Windows Server VM in the cloud. The difference between spinning up a Windows Server VM in the cloud versus spinning up a Windows Server VM in Hyper-V is something that can be learned relatively quickly. What do you do with that server then? I mean, are you comfortable with Windows Server networking? Are you comfortable with identity and access controls? Are you comfortable with NTFS permissions? Are you comfortable with load balancing? Really, the difference between learning the MCSA and learning the Azure Administrator, they both are ultimately accomplishing very similar tasks, but they just do it in different GUIs. I mean, that's really it at the end of the day. Yes, everything is moving towards the cloud, but I think you'll get a larger, broader foundation working on your MCSA first. Once you're really comfortable spinning up virtual machines, virtualization, storage solutions, networking, identity, moving to that cloud center, it's kind of like taking the Network Plus before CCNA. Getting your MCSA, which is a very, very difficult task to do, by the way, and then moving into the Azure Administrator series of content, I think you're going to set yourself up for the most amount of success, because then you can go either way in your career, right? You'll be very comfortable with working with on-premise infrastructure, which the majority of people still use. The majority of businesses are still heavily centered on-premise. But also, you can roll into a solution like, oh, you know what, that might make more sense cost effectively or resource effectively if we spun it up in Azure. And then you can actually take on those tasks too. So top certs for 2020 really depend on where you are in your career and what your goals, your aspirations are. I really think that if you're brand new, starting out in the CompTIA side of things is going to set you up for success. But CCNA is going to be incredibly valuable for you. DevNet is where things going. Or on the system side of things, MCSA is going to be incredibly valuable for you. Azure is where things going. Azure and AWS are where things are going. Now, CBT Nuggets has training on all of that content. Whether I do it or not, I can vouch for it because I was a learner at CBT Nuggets long before I was a trainer at CBT Nuggets. And I'm still a fan of all of these guys that I watch daily. So that's what I think is going on for 2020. Let me know what your goals are for 2020, and if you have any questions about this content, hit me up in the comments below. As always, if you like this type of content, do me a favor, just hit that like button or that subscribe button. Totally free, costs you nothing, but it really helps me out as a content creator, and it helps grow this channel. All right, thanks for stopping by, guys. We'll see you in the next one.